Hey, hey, and greetings, programs. It's the Review Revolution, getting geared up for the Tron Legacy that'll be coming out on the 17th of December. Back in 1982, I think we all know, Disney did the digital feature Tron. Very, very cool movie. Very awesome. It is a shame that back in 1982, Disney's philosophy was still based on no sequels. They didn't do sequels. Everything they did was original films. Always came out with something new. Didn't do sequels. And it's a shame because as good as Tron was, and as guaranteed a moneymaker as a sequel would be, and I always felt that Tron really did have kind of an epic, opening to it. It had a strong potential to be a very epic kind of set of movies. Disney was firm that there would not be a sequel. Well, that's over. Pirates of the Caribbean definitely proved that. Sequels are okay by Disney. And so now, the time is right for a Tron sequel. Tron Legacy, as we all know. I guess on top of, they are telling the story as of today, which is kind of cool. It's not trying to pick up where the other one left off. There's been things that have taken place, events that have occurred, and now we're seeing the grid as it exists today. And I like that. I do. What I especially like is it gives us a lot of background and a lot of story to discover. And I didn't realize this, but last year, Disney, along with Marvel now, did a two-part story called Tron Betrayal, the original graphic novel or graphic prequel to Tron Legacy. So this right here, the graphic novel, it was two separate volumes, but they've packaged it together and re-released it as a single book. Tells a story of a lot of the things that you may be asking. On the back, it says, "Greetings, programs. In 1982, Kevin Flynn changed the universe of video games forever. Now, 1983, he's got the rest of the world in his sights. Flynn has experienced things no other human has. He's seen a strange digital world, been attacked by his own creations, fought for his life, and lived to tell the tale. But why tell the tale when you can let a nation of gamers play it instead? After returning from the perilous digital realm, Kevin did what any brilliant video game designer would do after getting a glimpse of an impossible world. He made it into a game filled with light cycle races and deadly disc battles, a game he called Tron. But that was just the beginning. Flynn has created the digital world of his own, a place that is not only limited by his imagination, but he's just one man. No matter how clever he is, can he really be in two places at the same time? That's an important question. As Flynn's life in the real world becomes more complicated, his digital world is slowly becoming more and more dangerous. Taking place years before the events of Tron Legacy, Tron Betrayal shines a light on the creation of the grid, shows Flynn's never-before-seen adventures in the astounding world, and reveals the moment where it all went wrong." So, if you're trying to find out as little about the movie as possible, you may not want to watch this because there are several things that you find out, and I'm kind of jealous. People who read this two-parter last year are already very familiar with this. But if you haven't and you don't want to know, go ahead and give up now. But if you can't help it, let's dive in. What I really love about the comic is it starts with Dumont. And everybody remembers Dumont as the I.O. Guardian to communicate with the real world. It shows pretty much a synopsis, of the events of the Tron 1982. Everything from Flynn's arrival, his playing in the games with Sark, the light cycle races. I gotta say, it's actually a great picture of someone about to smash into a wall. their hunt, being hunted down, attacked. The recognizer, the blue recognizer, Ram's death, Tron arriving with Dumont, getting the instructions from Alan 1, his fight with Sark, all the stuff that we remember. It's a real great, kind of synapse of it, ending with, of course, the freeing of the network and Flynn meeting with his friends. Of course, if we all remember him coming off the helicopter saying, "Greetings, programs." This is in 1982, mind you. Flash forward 1 year, 1983. By this time, of course, Flynn is CEO of Incom, and he's actually built his own system. And you can see, if this was the system built by Sark, well, not so talented as he was called in the original movie is an understatement, because you can really see the world that Flynn creates once he's in charge. And basically, the story opens with him and Tron investigating what are called the bit bugs, which are kind of eating away at the grid. This also kind of establishes the fact that Flynn, there he is right there, and there's Tron, by the way, you can tell by the T-shaped pattern on his chest, that Flynn actually does travel back and forth in the grid. It wasn't just a one-time accident or something that only the MCP knew. He actually now travels back and forth pretty freely. One thing that I think this certainly answers is the look of the characters, because the Incom grid with Sark in charge, the programs were very digital. They had kind of the circuit patterns on them, whereas here with Flynn, much more leather and motorcycle, which I'll talk about that later. Here we see Flynn and his wife, the mother of Sam, who we will never get to meet in the movie, I don't think. There's Alan. And it seems as though when Alan and Flynn are together, they certainly end up looking much more like they do in the movie. But Flynn starts to realize that with everything happening with Incom, running Incom, with his wife and, the fact that she's going to have a baby, he's not going to be able to spend as much time in both worlds. So he basically goes through and recreates his hacking program, Clue. Clue, of course, was the program that helped him with his bank statements and his phone bills. Well, now Clue, made in his image, not yet fully rezzed, is charged with maintaining and running the grid, the Tron world. At the same time, Tron, of course, is still kind of the champion of the games, best there is. See him throwing his baton and forming his light cycle. Of course, here in Flynn's world, a program that loses in the games is not de-rezzed, and in fact continues to be able to play later. Marked difference from Incom then. Now here is a vortex, and from this vortex are spawning these anomalies. Here's my Porky Pig impression. These programs that don't have users. What their function is, I don't know, but they're procreated programs from the grid. And Flynn just could not be happier about the idea. Clue, on the other hand, now Tron and Flynn are very much on the same page about this. They think that it's actually not a bad thing at all. Clue, on the other hand, sees that these anomalies are dangerous, unpredictable, keeping the network running more perilous. And yet the bit bugs are still destroying the grid. Well, Clue is getting more and more frustrated at Flynn for having to spend more time outside the grid, and the fact that he doesn't have as much authority to take action without Flynn. He doesn't have as much authority. He can only do minor things. Major changes, he has to have Flynn there to do. And he kind of complains to Tron about the issue quite a bit. He and Flynn have on and off again discussions about the IOs, these new programs, until finally it reaches a point where Flynn has to leave Clue in the middle of a conversation, and then Clue and Tron have this meeting about the fact that Clue can't do his job. He's been set up to fail. And he actually says, which is a really great line, "He made me in his image. For all intents and purposes, I am the creator. And together we can keep the world a perfect system." So what we're getting to see here is Clue starting to take on the role of the MCP from the first movie in Flynn's absence with his son. That pretty much wraps up part one. Part two picks up when his wife is dead, a few years later, when his son is older, and the grid is in much more danger. Clue proposes the idea that the bit bugs are created from the same thing that are creating these IOs, and suggests that eliminating them is probably the best answer. Basically, being accused of genocide, Flynn, starts to consider what he may need to do to rope in Clue. By this time, over the years, Clue has started to expand himself and his powers. Tron has certainly done his best to maintain order and to keep the system the way Flynn likes it. But it's ultimately a hopeless fight because Clue has more control and Tron is just one program. When Flynn comes in to investigate what's going on, he is captured by Clue, and you can tell Clue by the new pattern he's wearing on his robes. From this point on, Clue captures Flynn and locks him away, and he's never able to leave the grid. At least not from this point forward. The movie will certainly show us more. Tron, certainly, looking back on what's happening, kind of makes the decision, chooses his side, and goes after the foot soldiers and Clue himself to free Flynn. Ultimately, in the end, Clue does end up, the victor. He manages to poison the source of the rogue program's spawning. And in the epilogue, that's really going to show you where things are going to pick up from the movie, Clue starts to build his army, has his foot soldiers. Tron, after a run-in with them, leaves, possibly return as Rensler. And we see almost a Star Wars kind of scene where we have Clue with his armies of foot soldiers, recognizers, and tanks marching into the programmed city using Flynn's own lines. "Greetings, programs. We're going to create the perfect system." And that, my friends, is where we will see Legacy pick up, and how Sam will find the grid when he arrives. If you're interested, if you're looking forward to the movie, I definitely say pick this up. For now, I certainly hope everybody enjoyed watching. Rate, comment, subscribe, join the revolution. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.